It was a crisp autumn evening, the kind that usually brings comfort with its cool, soothing breeze and the rustling of fallen leaves. I had the house to myself for the weekend. My parents were visiting my grandmother, and I had declined the trip, opting for some quiet time to catch up on schoolwork. Little did I know, the serenity would soon morph into something sinister. I settled on the couch with my books and a cup of hot chocolate, fully immersed in my reading. The silence was only interrupted by the occasional creak of the old house, which I had grown accustomed to. Hours slipped by, and as the night deepened, an unsettling feeling began to creep in. The wind outside had picked up, howling through the trees, making the house feel even more isolated. Around midnight, I decided to call it a night. I turned off the lights downstairs and headed to my room. As I was brushing my teeth, I heard a faint noise, like soft tapping, coming from the kitchen. I paused, listening intently, but it stopped. I shrugged it off, convincing myself it was just the wind playing tricks on my mind. Back in my room, I crawled into bed and tried to ignore the sense of unease. I just started to drift off when the tapping resumed, louder this time. My heart raced as I strained to hear over the pounding in my chest. It was coming from the back door. Gathering my courage, I decided to investigate. I tiptoed downstairs, each step an eternity. The tapping grew more intense. When I reached the kitchen, I hesitated, my hand hovering over the light switch. I flicked it on, illuminating the empty room. The back door stood in the shadows, the tapping now a relentless drumming. Summoning my last bit of bravery, I approached the door and peeked through the curtains. My blood ran cold. A face stared back at me, pale and gaunt, eyes wide with an unnatural intensity. The man's mouth moved as if he was speaking, but I couldn't hear any word through the glass. I stumbled back, heart hammering in my chest. He kept tapping, his movement frantic. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, my hands trembling so violently I could barely press the buttons. The operator's calm voice was a lifeline in the chaos. I explained the situation, trying to move my voice steadily. She assured me that help was on the way and advised me to stay on the line. Minutes felt like hours as I waited, clutching the phone to my ear. The man's tapping turned to banging, and I could see him shaking the door handle, trying to force his way in. I backed into a corner, hoping the police would arrive before he managed to break through. Suddenly, the banging stopped. Silence engulfed the house, thick and oppressive. I strained to hear any sign of movement, but there was nothing. I wondered if he had given up and left. The relief was short-lived, as then I heard the unmistakable sound of shattering glass from the living room. I bolted up the stairs, slamming my bedroom door and locking it. I barricaded myself with whatever furniture I could move, my heart pounding in my ears. The operator's voice was a distant hum as I focused on the sounds of the intruder moving through the house. Then I heard sirens, their wail a beacon of hope. Within moments, flashing lights flooded the front of the yard. The police had arrived. I heard them shouting commands, followed by the sound of a struggle. After what felt like an eternity, the house fell silent once more. A knock on my door made me jump. "It's the police, you're safe now," a voice called out. I moved the barricade and unlocked the door, lapsing into their arms. They had apprehended the intruder, a deranged man who had escaped from a nearby psychiatric facility. As they led him away, his eyes locked into mine, filling with a chilling intensity. "I'll be back," he whispered, his voice haunting me long after he was gone. The storm rolled in suddenly, dark clouds swallowing the late afternoon sun and casting the house into an eerie gloom. I'd always loved the sound of rain, but this storm felt different, menacing. I was home alone for the weekend. My roommate had gone to visit his family. It seemed like the perfect time to indulge into a movie marathon. Thunder rumbled in the distance as I settled on the couch, the living room dimly lit by the flickering of the TV. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows. I tried to lose myself in the film, but an uneasy feeling came over me. It was as if the house was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Halfway through the second movie, I heard a faint noise, a soft thud coming from above. I paused the film, straining to listen. Silence. I told myself it was just the house settling, an old building prone to random noises. I hit play, trying to ignore the growing sense of dread. A few minutes later, the thud came again, louder this time. My pulse quickened. It was definitely coming from the attic. I debated whether to investigate or call somebody. Well, who would I call? My roommate was hours away. I didn't want to seem paranoid. Summoning my courage, I grabbed a flashlight and headed towards the attic door. The creaky wooden stairs protested under my weight as I ascended. The air grew colder with each step, a chill that raised goosebumps on my skin. At the top, I paused and listened. Nothing. I pushed open the attic door, the hinges squealing in protest. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating dusty boxes and old furniture. I stepped inside, my breath visible in the frigid air. The silence was oppressive, thick with anticipation. I swept the light around, finding nothing out of the ordinary. As I turned to leave, a loud crash echoed from the far corner of the attic. I spun around, heart pounding, the flashlight beam shaking in my trembling hand. There, half hidden behind an old wardrobe, something moved. I froze, staring at the shadowy figure. "Who's there?" I demanded, my voice barely a whisper. No response. I took a hesitant step forward, the floorboards creaking beneath me. The figure shifted, and I realized it was just a stack of boxes that had fallen. Relief washed over me, mingled with embarrassment at my overactive imagination. I turned to leave again, but then I heard it, a soft, shuffling noise, like footsteps. My blood ran cold, as I wasn't alone. The beam of my flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows. The footsteps grew louder, coming closer. I backed towards the door, heart racing. Just as I reached for the handle, the flashlight went out, plunging the attic into darkness. Panic surged through me. I fumbled with the flashlight, desperately trying to turn it back on. The footsteps stopped, replaced by a soft whispering, indistinct and chilling. I bolted, tripping down the stairs and slamming the attic door behind me. I locked it, my hands shaking. The whispering continued, seeping through the wood, an unintelligible murmur that set my nerves on edge. I grabbed my phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. The operator's calm voice was a lifeline. I explained the situation, struggling to keep my voice steady. She assured me that the officers were on their way and advised me to stay on the line. Minutes felt like hours as I huddled in the living room, listening to the whispers from the attic. Finally, I heard the sirens approaching. The police arrived, their presence a welcome relief. They searched the attic thoroughly, but found no one. The whispers had stopped, leaving only the eerie silence. The officers couldn't explain the noises, attributing them to the storm and my imagination. They offered to stay until I felt safe, but I declined, too embarrassed to admit how scared I'd been. As they left, one of the officers paused. "Sometimes, old houses have their way of playing tricks on you," he said with a knowing look. I nodded, but deep down, I knew it was more than just a trick. The whispers in the attic weren't my imagination. They were a warning, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was up there was still watching, waiting for the next storm to come. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and check out my other horror stories on screen now. And until next time, sleep tight.